They bailed him multiple times. They're also saying they downgraded his risk to women because he only had one eye. I just don't get it. Zara Alina was killed by a man who had sexually assaulted a prison worker. These people were killed by a man who had sexually assaulted a prison worker while in prison, and they let him off. They gave him back a stolen travel card that he used again and again to commit these same crimes in the same vicinity.
22 minutes past 6. A convicted sex offender was free to murder 2 sex workers and violently rape another after a string of failures by the Met Police, Crown Prosecution Service and British Transport Police. Simon Levy was on bail for the murder of Carmenza Valencia Trujillo and had failed to attend court when he killed his second victim, Cheryl Wilkins, in the same Tottenham car park where he also raped another woman. Levy also committed a spate of sexual assaults on the London Underground over several years. 2 Met Police officers are being investigated by the Independent Office for Police Conduct in connection with the case. The Met Detective Chief Inspector Neil John called Levy a dangerous and predatory offender and didn't rule out the possibility that there were other victims.
We are appealing to anyone who is yet to report offences relating to Levy to come forward. Reporting rape or sexual assault is daunting. Many victim survivors will have concerns about speaking to the police, but we want to be clear that our priority is their safety, and we continue to work with partners across London to raise awareness of the support we can provide.
Kevin Southworth is Deputy Assistant Commissioner with the Metropolitan Police.
The Metropolitan Police has voluntarily referred itself to the Independent Office of Police Conduct, which is the independent watchdog that overviews any instances where we may have failed in our duty to protect the public. We've done so on the basis that we need to understand better what could have been done better, if at all, to offender manage Simon Levy in such a way as we could have protected the public from the harm that he posed. We do know that British Transport Police, of course, did their job in terms of bringing him forward for what ended up being 13 different counts of sexual offences on the tube and rail networks, and ultimately that led to him put before the courts twice in May and June this year, where despite bids to have him remanded into custody, he was actually bailed by the courts. So whilst we've referred ourselves to the IOPC to check our offender management processes in this matter, there's also a collective wider bit of learning about system failure and how he came to be bailed from courts at the peak of his offending, sadly only to go on to commit even further offences.
Violence against women and girls is a huge national issue and needs multi-agency cooperation. There is much work to do, but there's also many positive things going on. From your view, what can all multi-agencies do better to protect violence against women and girls, and what is being done from a proactive point of view?
Certainly. Well, there is a very positive and improving story in terms of certainly the Met Police, but also more broadly the national approach to tackling violence against women and girls. So here in the Met, I'm pleased to report that we've more than tripled our charge rate since 2022, and we're now charging and convicting more rape suspects than ever before, which is, I hope, some solace to all those who may have been victims of such awful crimes. Obviously this is only possible due to the very brave testimony of those victim survivors who've come forward. The same is true in many other types of violence against women and girls, so there's been similar improvements in our charge rates in terms of domestic abuse offences, stalking offences and other violence against women and girls crime types.
That's Kevin Southworth, Deputy Assistant Commissioner with the Met Police. Jamie Klingler is a writer and activist who co-founded the organisation Reclaim These Streets in the wake of the murder of Sarah Everard, and joins us now. Jamie Klingler, we have here the Times and others reporting multiple agencies failing to protect women, leaving a dangerous sexual predator free to murder. What were your feelings when you heard the news that Simon Levy had been convicted, finally?
I was glad he was convicted, but I'm very, very sure that there's a lot more victims out there that we don't know about yet. It's how many more women have to come forward, and what does it take for policing and other agencies to treat sex workers' lives like they matter. This man was given back a stolen travel card. He was downgraded as a risk to women, even though he had sexually assaulted a prison worker while he was in prison. He was released onto the street time and time again. They didn't even refer one of the murders that was on camera for 6 months. The Metropolitan Police has already said that they could have prevented Cheryl Wilkins's death. And how many of these rapes could they have prevented? And the whole thing is, Mark Rowley says that he's got this data approach of finding the most dangerous men and keeping them in jail and keeping us safe. It certainly didn't apply in this case, because I can't imagine anyone other than a serving police officer that was more dangerous for women.
Well, exactly. People will be listening to this and thinking, how can something like this have been allowed to happen? And you heard there the Metropolitan Police saying there'll be wider learning now of the system's failure and why the courts bailed this man to go on and commit these heinous crimes. I mean, that's a huge question, isn't it?
They bailed him multiple times. They're also saying they downgraded his risk to women because he only had one eye. I just don't get it. Zara Alina was killed by a man who had sexually assaulted a prison worker. These people were killed by a man who had sexually assaulted a prison worker while in prison, and they let him off. They gave him back a stolen travel card that he used again and again to commit these same crimes in the same vicinity. And none of those sex workers, there weren't signs up, there weren't pictures of him. There was no investigation because there was video of him murdering a woman that wasn't even referred to homicide. So how do we look at that and say, oh, but the Met is doing good things? Yeah. I'm despairing tonight, and it's taken a long time for me to be speechless at anything, but this case has blown my mind.
Yeah, and you know, you took to the streets, reclaimed these streets in the wake of the murder of Sarah Everard. And I remember us talking then about how can women feel safe on the streets and public transport, knowing that failures by authorities can leave offenders like this free to commit.
But who is taking care of us? Who is taking responsibility to keep us alive? And when are we going to start treating sex workers like they're women? This has been going on since Peter Sutcliffe as the Yorkshire Ripper. Back in the day, it was, oh, now that non-prostitutes are being killed, then we're going to worry about it. Then we're going to treat these women's lives like they matter. Each of these women's lives mattered. And the fact that there's over 10 women also in this case that have been raped in that same parking lot, that's insane. The fact that there was nothing going on, there were no sting operations needed. He was identifiable, easily identifiable, and they downgraded his risk and set him loose to attack more women.
It clearly isn't enough for you then that the police have referred themselves for further investigation. What more would you like to see happening?
I think we have to look at the education. And when we're talking about the triple rate of charging people with rape, it's gone from 3% to up to 9%. It's not that our charge rate is high. It's not that we really are taking violence against women and girls as seriously as we need to. Labor has said they want to have violence against women and girls. Well, it's really hard to do if your court systems, your policing systems, both BTP and Metropolitan Police that were responsible for this man's risk level are downplaying the danger he could do. And he did as much danger as possible. They're saying that on his computers, in his notebooks, he in graphic detail described his crimes. He said what he was doing. He continued to have pictures. How is these flags for somebody who was already in jail for rape just go unnoticed, and they downgraded him? Well, that's the part I can't get over.
We've heard these stories before about the failure of the various authorities to link up and connect. But, you know, this is one case. People say we'll learn lessons from it. Often you think, well, the lessons are never learned.
Well, we'll have a couple more inquiries. We still haven't instigated what was learned from the Angelini review. The Casey review, the Met Police still hasn't admitted the institutional misogyny and racism that happens within the Met. You know, it seems like these reviews just kick it into tall grass for no one to actually take responsibility. I want to understand every person in management that let these crimes go unattended and uninvestigated. To not refer a homicide that was done on camera for 6 months is unconscionable.
Jamie Klingler, thanks for joining us. Writer, activist who co-founded the organisation Reclaim These Streets in the wake of the murder of Sarah Everard. Very good to talk to you this afternoon. And Yolanda gets in touch and says, how many times must I say until a realistic sentence that's given is completed in full? Any less action would not be a deterrent, especially for sexual abuse crime.